So we're going to be looking at ticker symbol BIDU for Baidu. Currently I have the chart open on the 1 hour time frame, and we'll be looking back at some of the resistance levels, which we can easily already see on the graph because I've already marked them, just to make things a lot quicker and to analyze the price action movement for Baidu a lot faster. So let's go ahead and jump right into this ticker symbol. So we've seen Baidu come down from this major correction just off of here all the way down to its low of around 180. Actually, it did break that, but I've put in my resistance line at $189. But we did um see it touch, let's see, around $176. So there's roughly a $10 difference between my resistance line and its actual low. Um, since then, it has slightly recovered in the last couple of days. Just over here, as we can see, it's sort of coming back, trying to break out of these resistance lines and possibly consolidate for a nice, healthy recovery for Baidu. Um, so there was some negative news around Baidu. We'll be looking at some of those catalysts as well to determine what's going on with the stock and how we can sort of predict how the stock will be moving. So currently we are sitting at $220, which is Friday's close, and now we are expecting for it to test these resistance lines going upwards. If we are to break out, we can test the $227 resistance one more time, because we did try to break out of this, but since then we have slightly fallen down from this resistance, and we have hit this resistance twice, close to 3 times in the last couple of days. Let's see if we can zoom this in a little bit more. So we have hit it 3 times in the last couple of days: 1, 2, and 3, very barely. So we've already tried to attempt to break this resistance 3 times already, and since it is finding some struggle in breaking out of this um, out of uh, out of this 227 resistance. So we could possibly even see a continuation of this consolidation, and we could possibly even see a nice consolidation of this stock, of its price action, somewhere around um, somewhere between 213 and 227. I wouldn't be surprised to see this stock sort of trail within this sort of region, up and down, and then maybe find some catalyst to really push this stock upwards. So let's go ahead and see if we can find any news regarding Baidu, which could help us out in for the trading day of Monday. Let's go ahead and jump straight into the news. Margin call crash creates buying opportunity. So why Baidu? Let's go ahead and see what Baidu's why it was actually going down. It's potentially problematic SEC regulations regarding U.S. traded Chinese stocks. Shares of Baidu fell 23.3% in March, according to data provided by S&P Global Market Intelligence. The Chinese search giant fell amid multiple headwinds during the month, including pressure on technology growth stocks. So we did have that correction for growth stocks, and obviously Baidu is a growth company as well. It's one of the largest companies in tech companies in China. More broadly, a new regulations out of the SEC regarding U.S. listed Chinese companies. A majority of Baidu's March fall came toward the end of the month. That's when the SEC finally adopted the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act, passed under the Trump administration, that stipulates Chinese companies listed are required to be audited by U.S. auditors, as well as provide proof that they are not owned and controlled by the Chinese government. This seems to be a very big problem. Huawei also went through this problem with their 5G technologies. Companies will also have to identify each board member that is currently an official in the Chinese Communist Party. Baidu is currently dual listed in Hong Kong and on the Nasdaq. So the main there's new accountability measures that Trump passed, the Foreign Companies Accountable Act, which requires Chinese companies to be audited by U.S. companies. There has been a lot of what's the word? There've been a lot of companies which were listed on the U.S. Chinese companies which were listed on the U.S. stock exchange, which later turned out to be some of them were fake companies, and people did lose a lot of money. So, unfortunately, Baidu was also held by now infamous hedge fund Archegos Capital Management at the time, which blew up in the lax. So, Archegos was also a big holder in Baidu, and their margin was pulled by the big banks and hedge funds, and which caused a massive sell-off in a lot of companies, because Archegos was holding. I think, I'm not completely sure about this, but I think Baidu was one of their biggest holdings, and once their margin was called during the crash, this caused a major correction in their price. Um, Shares trade at 21 times this year's earning estimates, which isn't expensive by large caps tech standards. So Baidu is a large cap company, and right now their shares are trading at 21 times their earnings, which is um, which isn't too bad. Most growth companies have a higher PE ratio. 21 seems to be very low for comparing it to other growth stocks, which have very high PE ratios. Um, Baidu has disappointed investors over the last few years, as growth hasn't kept up with other large Chinese internet giants. While tech business generally thrived in 2020 amid the pandemic, Baidu's revenue was flat for the year, so their growth hasn't been as strong as other Chinese companies. Um, so overall, Baidu remains somewhat risky amid tough China competition, difficult U.S.-China relation, antitrust concerns. Uh, so just because of this whole commotion with the U.S. and China, um, there has been a lot of uh, issues with the Chinese companies, and Baidu is sort of falling under that umbrella. Um, so we have online PNC insurance, but no, Hong Kong shares of China. This is insurance. This is something else. Let's go ahead. 5 star stocks. So let's go ahead and see the correction and see whether this correction can be justified for a nice buy entry within within Baidu. So let's go ahead and see where we are. Let's zoom out completely. So as you can see, we were at a nice high of $360, and now we have corrected all the way down to $220, which is around 140, which is $140 correction on its stock price. The PE ratio is 21, and um, it seems as if Baidu will probably trail around these zones for a little bit while uh, until China relations somewhat improve. That's what I can. That's what I can sort of assess while looking at the charts. Because we are, if we look at our price. That this $220. We were at $220. Let's see where we are here. We were at this price. We were sitting at this price around 7th of Jan. So around a month ago, we were sitting at this price range, and since uh, last month, we saw this very nice upward ride momentum in the stock, in the Baidu stock price. So for the look at Baidu, we really want to see it sort of stay within these zones and not test these and not test the lows. Uh, Ideally, again, we probably want to see a nice gradual move upwards within this stock, as it is a growth company, and um, hopefully it trails within these resistance points. Now, you should be worried if the price action does drop. So let's go ahead and see if we can uh, throw in some indicators to give us a nice overview of the stock. So we are looking at the 1 hour, and as we can see right over here, the we did touch the oversold territory while looking at the RSI, and that's where we are sort of sitting with a nice spike slightly upwards. So zoom in a little bit more. So as you can see, we have a nice spike right over here going upwards. Let's see if we can bring up some. In the last couple of days, there's been very little volume coming into the stock. The RSI is in the oversold, or it has touched the oversold, and it's now correcting upwards. So possibly for Monday, we could see some nice movement upwards just by looking at the RSI. So maybe some nice price action upwards, just because it's been sort of touched the oversold area, and we can see a nice incline in its price action. Let's go ahead and mark this line. Let's go ahead and close this and see if we can sort of trail on the momentum. Let's go ahead and go into full view. I'm going to go ahead and close the RSI. Let's zoom out a little bit more to see its new sort of trajectory, and what we can sort of follow for this stock. We see it sort of bounce off of this yellow line and keep its ride going upwards, which would be very interesting to see. If there does seem to be a catalyst which might come into play, which might be negative, how it has been sort of in the last thing. So we would be watching this yellow line, and if it is to break, then we could see a nice wave back downward, which would give us a buying opportunity to maybe purchase stock for this for Baidu. If we do break this yellow line, we could possibly even end up testing the all-time lows from before. If there is a lot of negative news and selling pressure, and because after looking at the RSI and the amount of volume that's coming in, it does seem that the RSI is in the oversold, so we might see some positive price action going upwards. But because there's very little amount of volume that's coming in the last couple of days, we still could see some lower price action. So hopefully this was useful to you. Make sure to like, subscribe, and if you have any companies that you want me to analyze, just leave them in the comments, and I'll try to get those videos out for you guys as well. All right, thanks, and have a good one.